Scaling a business is one of the toughest challenges for entrepreneurs, even those who are already hitting seven figures. Every week, I work with business owners who feel stuck, struggling with bottlenecks that slow down their growth and keep them from scaling to seven figures and beyond. And when I take a deep dive into their business, I almost always find the same fundamental mistakes that cause these bottlenecks. So without further ado, let's dive into what these fundamental mistakes are. Mistake number one, not having a cash machine inside your business. Most business owners focus on revenue growth, but they don't have a cash acceleration strategy built into their model. This means that they're growing their top line revenues whilst letting profit and cash flow bottlenecks slow them down. Without a cash machine, businesses become reliant on inconsistent revenue spikes or, let's say, external funding. And then this leads to cash flow gaps, stress, and even failure at times. Not because the business isn't making money, because it's not structured to keep it. So this means things like shortening cash conversion cycles by renegotiating terms with suppliers and clients. Because the goal is to get money in faster and pay it out slower, obviously within reason, of course. So don't be afraid to reach out to clients and have these conversations. Because if you're good at what you do and they value your product or service, then really there should be no reason for you to not be able to agree on better terms that are more favorable to you. Another way to accelerate your cash flow is by increasing average transaction value. Now, the trick here is to look for opportunities to increase your average order value. So that could mean upselling additional products or services, or perhaps bundling products or services together in a way that presents an irresistible offer at a discounted rate, which will increase the profitability of each transaction. Or it might mean maybe introducing a premium back offer. So let's say you run a digital marketing agency. Your core offer might be a £2,000 monthly package that includes basic ad management and reporting. But after a few months, once the client sees results and trusts your team, you then might be able to introduce a growth accelerator package. So this might include things like funnel building, conversion rate optimization, full ad creative production, and monthly strategic consulting calls. So once you bundle it all together, you might actually charge $6,000 per month for that premium offer. So what you've done there is actually doubled your average transaction value over a 6-month period. And this is the thing, a lot of businesses leave cash on the table just because they've never tested things or have always opted for a traditional transaction model. But when you tend to adopt traditional models, you tend to adopt traditional mistakes. And so you need to start thinking differently. And finally, a third cash acceleration strategy could be developing recurring revenue streams to stabilize your cash flow. So if you're starting from scratch every month, that's not really a scalable business model. And it's going to be even harder to grow to any kind of exit. So start to think about subscription models, retainers, memberships, anything that produces predictability with your income and reduces the roller coaster effect that kills momentum. I teach my clients how to turn their businesses into self-sustaining assets where cash flow becomes predictable and isn't tied to constant sales hustle. Another fundamental mistake I see time and time again is relying on doers instead of drivers in your leadership team. Now, most businesses fail to scale because they have a leadership team of managers. People great at executing tasks instead of drivers, people who take ownership of growth. Why is it bad? A company bottlenecks when the owner is the only real driver of progress. If your team isn't proactively identifying problems, improving efficiencies, or optimizing profitability, your growth is inevitably going to stall. So to fix this, you have to shift your hiring strategy from task-based roles to outcome-based leadership. So you have to promote or hire growth-focused leaders who drive KPIs instead of just completing to-do lists. You don't want overpaid execs in your business that spend hours hiding behind their desk, theorizing and strategizing. You need people who are going to stand up and make shit happen. I'm talking about the people who are obsessed with driving KPIs, not just getting through task lists. These are leaders that are always thinking commercially and understand what moves the business forward and are measured by outcomes such as revenue generated, profit grown, cost reduced, and not how many Zoom calls they had or how many emails they sent. If you have a team of forward-thinking and progressive managers, you need to seriously think about changing your team. Another strategy is to introduce ownership scorecards. It's a system that we use to ensure that every leader is accountable for revenue, profit, and efficiency, not just keeping things running. Because every leader should have clear accountability, not just for delivering a service or running a department, but for hitting specific targets around things like revenue, profit, and operational efficiency. What this will do is create clarity and accountability and put pressure in the right places so you know exactly who's delivering and who's coasting. Thirdly, and this one's critical, guys, you've got to train your team to make CEO level decisions without you. Now, this doesn't mean recklessness. It just means giving them the frameworks, the context, and more importantly, the trust to act with authority. Because if every decision still funnels back to you, then you're not building a leadership team. You're just building a queue outside your office door. So mistake number 3 is your business model is a bottleneck, not just your operations. So what this is, entrepreneurs often think that they have an operations problem, when in reality, the entire business model is restricting growth. Because if your business requires too much fulfillment, too much customization, or too much involvement from you, it's never going to be able to scale past a certain point. So to fix this, you have to re-engineer your business model for scalability, profitability, and exit potential. So that means standardizing your product or your service model so you're not trapped in custom work. Because customization creates an additional level of complexity and inevitably mistakes are going to occur. So instead, productize your service, define clear deliverables and outcomes along with fixed timelines. Because when you standardize what you deliver, you can build repeatable systems and operations and train a team to deliver it without needing to reinvent the wheel every time. Now, here's something that makes a huge impact. Be transparent about your pricing. Because by using upfront pricing strategies, you remove friction and you speed up sales cycles. Because when prospects can clearly see what they get and what it costs, then they can make faster decisions and your sales team can close with more confidence. So use upfront pricing strategies to remove friction and speed up your sales cycles. Because ultimately, this is going to remove the friction, it's going to build trust, then they can make faster decisions and your sales team can close with more confidence because these individuals are going to be pre-qualified. And lastly, build process-driven delivery models so fulfillment doesn't depend on you or your senior employees. Now, this is the move that separates scalable businesses from founder-dependent ones, because you have to build delivery systems that run on processes and not on people, especially not you or your most senior employees. Think McDonald's, not a Michelin star chef. The brilliance of a scalable model is that quality doesn't rely on the genius of one person. It comes from processes that can be repeated, trained, and managed. When your business runs on systems instead of superheroes, it becomes scalable and eventually it becomes sellable. And this is how businesses go from hard to scale founder-dependent companies to high-value investment-ready businesses. So bottleneck number 4 is making decisions based on gut feel instead of hard data. Entrepreneurs often scale reactively, chasing revenue instead of optimizing for real data-backed profitability. Because without financial intelligence, you're likely making decisions that might sound good or maybe look good on paper, but they actually end up hurting your bottom line. Most business owners don't even realize they're scaling unprofitably. So to fix this, you need to implement a CEO dashboard that tracks cash flow cycles, profit margins, and return on your time. You need one single source of truth. Forget about speculating and making decisions based on assumptions. Your business decisions must be data-driven. So you need to be using a live dashboard that gives you real visibility into your business performance, not just on revenue, but metrics like customer acquisition cost, customer lifetime value, average transaction value, revenue per employee, and many more. And this isn't about vanity metrics. It's about total financial clarity. Because when you have the right numbers in front of you, you can stop making reactive moves and start making smart ones, strategic ones, based on what's really happening, not what you think or what you hope is happening. Now, this next one is a strategy that I came across a few years back and could be a game changer when it's applied correctly. And it's about adopting a profit first model where every pound or dollar of revenue is intentionally allocated profit first, then taxes, then operating expenses. It's not about waiting to see what's left at the end of the month to figure out your profit. Yeah, you're essentially reframing how you would typically process these key metrics in business. Also about this strategy is that it really forces financial discipline and ensures your company actually grows in a healthy, sustainable way. And although it might sound pretty simple, it's so powerful because revenue means nothing if your profit margin is shrinking. So rather than walking a tightrope each month, not knowing what way things are going to fall, profit first makes sure growth doesn't just look good, it actually makes you wealthier. Next, analyze your cost of complexity, because very often reducing services or products actually increases your profit more than adding new ones. Because many entrepreneurs think growth actually means adding more products or services or say customer segments. But more often than not, that's just going to overload your operations, creating bottlenecks and unnecessary stress, and it's going to end up tanking your margins. Instead, what you need to do is regularly analyze what service or operations are actually eating at your team's time but generating very little in the way of profit. What products are confusing customers or perhaps causing slower delivery. If I had to double my profit without adding a single new customer, product or service, I'd actually start looking at what I can simplify in my offer stack. So that means cutting away the fat, looking at what actually boosts profitability more than actually launching something new. And you have to remember, guys, a business isn't successful because it makes money. It's successful because it keeps it, and that's something to always bear in mind. And lastly, mistake number 5. Now, most entrepreneurs are not even thinking about exiting, and if they do, it's not until it's too late to do so, because by then their business isn't positioned to be attractive, sellable, or investment ready. Even if you don't plan to sell, a business that can't run without you isn't valuable to investors, buyers, or even yourself, really. Now, you might be thinking, I don't want to sell my business yet. I've got no intentions of selling it. But that's not the point. The point's this. A business that's not sellable isn't scalable, and it's definitely not free. Because if the company relies too heavily on you for strategy, operations, leadership, or client relationships, then the minute you step away, the business is either going to slow down or it's going to fall apart. And that means it has little to no value in the eyes of investors or buyers. Or even worse, it holds you hostage. So to fix this, you need to start structuring your company at least 2 or 3 years before you consider exiting. Because an attractive exit doesn't happen overnight. It takes intentional design. So you need to start thinking like an acquirer. What would they want to see? They want to see clean financials, predictable cash flow, documented process and systems, low founder dependency. And structuring early gives you time to clean up any messy areas and also shift dependencies and build real enterprise value. And look, even if you never sell, you end up with a business that runs smoother, makes more profit, and it gives you actual freedom. Own your tech rather than hiring it out. Now, here's something that most founders overlook. Intellectual property and proprietary systems add massive value when it comes to exiting. So if you're outsourcing your core tech or automations or platforms, you're not building an asset, you're renting one. Now, buyers are attracted to infrastructure they can take over and perhaps integrate within their existing operations. Yeah, they're not really attracted by, layers of third-party vendors. Now, this doesn't mean you need to build software from scratch, but if tech plays a major role in delivering your service or managing your customers, try and make sure it's built, branded, and owned by your company, because it's going to add massive leverage and it's going to considerably increase your company's valuation. Remove owner dependency by automating decision-making and leadership delegation. Now, we already touched upon this earlier on in the video, but it's so important I have to reiterate it. You've got to remove yourself from the center of the decision-making. Now, your sole focus as a business owner should be on making yourself redundant so the business no longer needs you to grow and thrive. This is going to mean delegating your decisions to key leadership team. It's going to mean creating SOPs for core functions of your business. It's going to mean implementing processes and systems that automate routine choices. It's going to mean that your job is to make yourself redundant from the day-to-day operations, not because you want out, but because that's how you create freedom and value. Now, scaling isn't just about removing bottlenecks. It's about designing your business to scale itself. Because most business owners, they stay stuck at 6 or 7 figures because they're constantly firefighting problems instead of building a system that prevents them in the first place. So if you're serious about scaling profitably, making your business investment ready, and removing yourself as a bottleneck, my team and I can help. So check the link in the description. It's going to take you through to a page that gives a bit more information on how we work, on how we can add value to your business. And if you haven't already, please make sure you like and subscribe, hitting the notification bell to stay up to date with the latest weekly video releases. And I'll see you on the next one.